Rebecca, you good? All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. We have a special guest, Mike Jones, with us. But before we begin the presentation, just a quick disclosure here. All this information is meant for educational purposes. You should consult with your accountants, advisors, attorneys before making any investment. We're just a part of your team that helps you access these funds to do different things that aren't allowed by other custodians. What is a self-directed IRA? Basically, a self-directed IRA lets you invest in anything that you want that the IRS doesn't prohibit. The IRS never tells you what you can invest in, only what you cannot invest in, and that's collectibles and life insurance. So as long as it doesn't classify as that, most likely you're able to use your IRA or 401k to make an investment. This is what we see the majority of our clients investing in: real estate, then all types of real estate, precious metals, that's physical metals that are stored at a depository, notes and mortgages, another big field, along with private placements, which is a lot of private funds and private businesses as well. You can use all these types of account. On the left-hand side are your tax-deferred accounts, and on the right-hand side are your tax-free accounts. I'm a big fan of the tax-free accounts. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask those to me. There is also a chat box to ask questions throughout the presentation. We'll also take questions that you can start putting in at the end as well. So I'll let Mike tell you a little bit about himself, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you here now, Mike.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, hey, everybody, I'm really excited that you've all chosen to come today. I really thank you for that. And a little bit about me. Over the years, I've been what you'd call a jack of all trades. I've worked in FDA labs as a biologist, as an electrical engineer for Logitech Audio, and then post that, I started my own private tutoring business, and I focused on topics like engineering and math for students and physics, most of the subjects that kids hate. So that's what I focused on. I'm originally from Upstate New York, and I lived there until I was about 22. Then I moved out west to Utah, where I started, among other things, before I did the biology stuff, I brewed beer as a micro brewer, and it's been a crazy life, but a good one. And so let's start the presentation.
All right, I just wanted to put my contact information up there, Mike, real quick, if anybody needs to get a hold of me. And I'm going to stop my share, and I'm just going to make you host, so accept whatever it says, okay?
Okay, cool. Let's see. Oh, look at that. There I am. All right. Share screen. So host disabled participant from sharing screen is where I'm at. Are you guys able to?
Hold on.
Yeah, a little technical stuff.
Let me go back here. Hold on. Let's go here. Okay. That should bring.
Yeah, that'll work.
Should ask you something.
Yep, I think we're good, man. All right.
There we go.
So you can all see that? Great, cool. All right, I'm just gonna, I can't really minimize that. Well, the title of this presentation is Protect Your Assets. No pun intended, be the bank. And we're gonna go over what that means really quick. First, I wanna thank Camaplan for allowing me to do this webinar. I think it's awesome. And on the bottom there's a link. Ryan mentioned some of the things you can invest in with Camaplan, and down at the bottom, there's a link there for how you would invest in mortgage notes, which is the topic of this conversation today. Legal notice, not much different than Camaplans. I'm not selling securities. I'm not offering advice. Always do your due diligence. Always check with your attorneys and your CPAs, your bookkeepers, and what have you, and your financial advisors. So I have some rules for this presentation, everybody. We're going to have fun. There's nothing worse than a boring lunch webinar. Number two, I promise I'll be myself 110%. I'm sure that's going to come across. And I offer total transparency about where I've been, what I've done, and what I'm doing right now. Blowing no smoke. So rule number three is I'm going to ask probably about 9 or 10 questions during the webinar, and it'd be great if y'all could put those in the chat, your answers. They don't have to be paragraphs, just really quick, you know. And if you have questions, make sure you write them down, because there may be a chance at the end to have some of those answered. If we don't have time, I'll make sure those questions get answered via email or a phone call or something of your choosing. And final rule is there's nothing worse than going to a webinar on something and then not deciding, not giving it a yes or no. So what I'm saying is this: if this kind of investing is a no-go for you, decide that. If it's a yes for you, that's awesome. But the worst thing is to leave with maybes. Like maybe you'll do it or you'll look into it in the future. Most of us know someday never comes. So make a choice, because the people that pull the trigger on things, they move forward, whether it's a yes or no typically. So, and I always want to see people moving forward in life. Okay, so that's it. Those are my rules. So I'm gonna pick on some asset classes that I'm involved in actually, but
these are a few of my favorite things.
so these are not my favorite things. Okay, apologize for the swearing and stuff, guys, but the stock market, I do invest in it, but it is a big casino. And my point here is, when you invest in the stock market, you're investing in equities. And there's nothing backing that capital. It's just the market valuation of those companies you're invested in. And so, not one of my favorite things, but I'm invested in some stocks. Venture capital is the next one I'm going to pick on. Apologies to all VC people out there.
Some people don't want to say this, but I'll say it. VCs in some cases are dumb money if it's not their sector. And their business model is to be wrong.
They love to hear that. I just sure
they're wrong. Their business model is to be wrong 9 times out of 10 and walk around with an attitude that they're right 9 times out of 10. I'm not 26 years old. That kind of attitude doesn't work for me. I live here in Silicon Valley. I'm surrounded by them.
So that's I'm not invested in VC. That's one of my big problems with it is their business model is that 90% of their portfolio companies will fail or not make money. And so they're really banking on that 1 out of 10. So for me, I'm 45 years old, and for my investment goals, that's not going to work for me. And let's look at the next one, which is pretty typical. That I've never done this one, but I know a lot of people that have.
Now we're going to touch on this $15,000 mistake. So here's the thing. The sewer line that goes from just under that window right there, right about to this little cap right here, needed to be replaced. To tie into the house's main drains, we realized that the iron pipes that were in there had their bottoms rusted out of the bottom, which basically means the plumbing system for the house was a fancy septic system. It was all leaching into the ground anytime somebody flushed the toilet. We don't even know how much was actually making it out of the house. So what did that mean Kevin thought to do? Well, let's just replace all the drains. And then as soon as we got to realizing, oh, well, let's just replace all the drains, which wasn't in the initial budget, of course, then we got to thinking, well, wait a minute. While we're replacing all the drains, why don't we just replace all the plumbing supply lines too? And then we realized, oh, well, wait a minute. If we're replacing the drains and we're replacing the copper supply lines, that means the piping vents aren't the right size to code anymore, and there aren't enough cleanouts in the house, so we're going to have to bring those up to code as well. So all in all, the idea to save maybe $1,000 by not outsourcing this to a trenchless company that would have just hooked up to this old sewage system, and I would have never known about the stuff in the inside, and really nobody would have probably ever experienced the problem. We took it to the next slide. So basically where we wanted to save about $1,000 or $1,500, we 10x'd it and put a minus sign in front of that and turned it into about a negative $15,000 project. We had to cut the concrete, we had to trench, we had to redo the fence, redo the piping, re-pour the concrete, make sure rebar was in the concrete before pouring it, and then actually be there with the mixer truck that costs $2 a minute. And that stops the rest of the project from being able to move. Disaster.
So that's for me. I've heard a lot of stories about house flipping like that. I think you can make a lot of profit on it. However, it's not truly investing, because once you stop that flip, that profit's done. So it's not a continual type of investing. And my first question for everybody here today on this webinar is, what type of investing are you currently in? Are you either in real estate or not real estate? Are you in VC? Are you a flipper? Are you a private lender? And I'm curious as well, as for those things I've done that I showed, VC, stock market, and house flipping, has anybody ever tried doing that stuff and it's not actually helped you out, or you've had some bad deals on it? So I'll give you about 10 seconds to type some stuff into the chat there.
I saw a few people that said they were in real estate. They also said they're in a VC, and what you're saying is true. So I think, yeah, we get that, we get your perspective there.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I'm not, the torches aren't outside my door yet. I'm not going to get lynched. And so I would be remiss if, so I picked on a couple asset classes there, but now I'm going to pick on my own asset class. We're going to talk about the Big Short on note investing. Everybody remembers 2008.
How many loans do you write each month?
About 6.
What was it 4 years ago?
10, maybe 15.
Yeah, I was a bartender. Now I own a boat.
You own a boat. So how many of these are adjustable rate mortgages?
Well, most.
Yeah, I'd say about 90%. The bonuses on those skyrocketed a few years ago. Adjustables are bread and honey.
So do applicants ever get rejected?
Seriously? Look, if they get rejected, I suck at my job.
Well, even if they have no money?
Well, my firm offers ninja loans. No income, no job. You know, I just leave the income section blank. Corporate doesn't care. These people just want homes, you know, and they go with the flow.
Good for you.
Your companies don't verify.
If I write a loan on Friday afternoon, the big bank is going to buy it by Monday lunch.
Yeah, same here.
All right, so
Could you hold on?
we know a lot of funny business was going on in 2008. And probably about 80% of the time when I tell people that I buy mortgages, this is what's coming to their mind, is all the stuff that went down in the bad old days not too long ago, 12, 13 years ago. And so when I say, hey, I invest in notes, and they say, what are notes? And I say, I buy mortgages and trust deeds. A lot of times this is where their mind goes, is right to this crappy era of our time where, like you heard them saying, ninja loans were being written, no income, no job. They're just writing paper and selling them to the banks, and these people didn't know what they were getting into. So it was a bad time, admittedly. Okay. So I'm going to tell you guys how to be a big bad banker. So if you want to get in the notes, like I do it, this is how to do it and be a big bad banker. Okay. Step one. Now bear with me. I need you to find an old couple that's in financial trouble. Somebody really vulnerable. Okay. That's step one. Step two. Now this is a real case scenario, real case study about a couple in Indiana, an older couple. The wife had severe health problems, and the husband is currently the only one working. Her house was worth $109,000. Oh, go ahead.
Mike, out of curiosity, I saw it come up before, but then I didn't see it on another side. Are you able to get rid of that box or no? Or is it just?
Which box am I seeing?
Just one on the right-hand side that's like covering up the, I don't know what that's going to say, 60. Very right.
Oh yeah, what's that about? Oh, that's
Um,
weird. Can I see
If
that?
if not, I mean, I'm sure you're going to describe it, but if it was easy enough to get rid
What
of,
is
fine.
that
But if
about?
not, it's
That's new. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's unexpected. Is it gone?
no.
Yeah, you just see the slide stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Okay, that's fine.
Sorry.
You can talk them through it. That's all right.
Okay, I'm not sure what's hidden there. Okay, so 60,000. So you have a $109,000 house. We bought. They have $100,000 on their mortgage left, and we bought that mortgage for 60,000. So we bought it at 60 cents on the dollar. Okay. Let's see if this works now. Did that box go away, Shell? What is that about? That is so
Someone was
weird.
saying it looks like your Zoom window.
It is, man. That's what it is, dude. Yeah, it's not the build order. It's this Zoom thing. Let me see if I can move it. I can't see my cursor for some reason. No. That's crazy. I
Well, I'm
can't
sure
see.
you can walk us through it.
Yeah, let me do something really quick. Okay, here we go. That helps, right? Okay.
If you're not in presentation mode, then it's over to the right. Oh wait, I think it just got smaller.
That went away, right?
Yeah, now go back into full presentation mode.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I
better,
think you're
huh?
good now. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Cool. Sorry about that, everybody. A little technical difficulty. So the bottom line is they have a house, 109, their mortgage is at 100. I bought their mortgage for $60,000, 60 cents on the dollar. So step three of being a big bad banker, like you saw, is now these people were in trouble. So I took their mortgage and remodified it, or like rewrote their mortgage. They had $8,000 in late fees. They had 300 payments left. And so what you're able to do as a note investor is modify the paper. So what I did is I turned that $60,000 mortgage I bought into a brand new $114,000 mortgage. Okay. Here's the benefit though. I'm not such a bad guy. I won on that, right? I almost doubled my value of investment by doing that. Here's the bonus, okay? Originally, these folks, their mortgage rate was at 14%, which is crazy, and they were paying about $1,200 a month. I believe this mortgage was originated back in the 90s. So by doing the loan modification, what I did is I cut their interest rate in half, which took their P&I, their principal and interest payment, down to $758 a month. And so that I reduced their principal and interest by 37%. So now to stay in their house, okay? This should sound a lot different than what they were doing in 2008, where they were putting people into bad loans. Now, what we're doing now as note investors is we're essentially fixing the problem by taking mortgages that were purchased or were initiated under bad conditions. And now people that are still in those mortgages, and even some people that have mortgages from out that time, we're fixing that stuff. So we're not really big bad bankers at all. Okay. We're actually doing a service to these people and ourselves. So I hate using this word, it's overused, but essentially it is what they call a win-win. All right. And banks don't do that. I have a mortgage with US Bank, and I've had mortgages with other banks. Never once has a bank offered to help us out. If we miss a mortgage payment, things get scary really fast. Okay. If we miss 3, now we're looking into foreclosure. Okay. Banks don't have the departments to negotiate these kind of deals. But as a note investor / mortgage investor, whatever you want to call it, trusted investor, you have the power to negotiate that stuff. Okay. So some people could look at this like, is this a charity? You're cutting these people's mortgage rates in half. You're essentially helping them stay in their house. And yes and no, it's a charity, okay? Because what we're doing is we're giving them a big second chance. And believe it or not, some people, they blow that second chance. So there's still repercussions in case they don't fulfill their promise. Okay, so it's not a charity, it's still investing. All right. And I'm curious, I would like everybody to answer this question. What would you do in that situation where you buy a mortgage, 60 cents on the dollar, you find out that the people living there, they're old, they have health problems, they can't pay. However, you have investor capital invested with you, and you still need to make money on that asset. So I'm really curious what everybody in the audience how they would handle that situation. So I'll give you about 10 seconds to write something down. Again, it doesn't have to be like a huge paragraph. All right. Well, that's how we handled it. We thought we gave them a great deal, the best deal possible. What do you guys think a bank would do? I would love you guys to write that down really quick. Forbearance, foreclosure, loan modification, nothing. Just one word will suffice for that. And so what I want to talk about is this type of investing, okay? You see this poor melancholy guy staring at the ocean. And when I had to figure out what to do with that mortgage, that those folks, those older folks, it wasn't such an easy choice for me. I in fact called my wife that morning and I said, like I was getting different opinions from different people. I got some aggressive options like demand all the back payments and demand them to catch up on their mortgage or foreclose on them. And in reality, they didn't have that money. So it was a tough choice. And so what we came up with is like I was saying before, the best option possible, where we could win and they could win, and they'd have a big second chance. Some people might think, what a softie, I'm such a softie. And at heart, I am a softie. I care about people immensely, maybe too much sometimes. And the reason this particular situation was so tough is because this is my first experience with debt. Okay, I'm 9 years old. My mom's a single mom. She's a RN, so she works at the hospital during the day. And then at night, she works at a donut shop just to pay the bills, okay? And her credit wasn't so great. So we had a car she bought from a used car lot. And again, 1984, I'm 9 years old. And one day, my mom's at work, like always, and a guy knocks on my door. And he's the repo man. And if anybody knows who the repo man is, he's the repossession man. And he comes to take the stuff you're not paying on. There's a show on Discovery Channel where you have repo men coming and taking like airplanes and helicopters. It's awesome. But anyways, the repo man shows up and he doesn't say anything to me. My mom's not home. He just looks at me. And all of a sudden, I look out the window. I'm calling my mom at work. The car is on a tow truck. And then they drive away without saying anything to me. And I literally run down the street after him. Okay. That was my first experience with debt. And so I've been on both sides of it. Okay. So that's why that thing was so tough. And I should tell you a little more about right now about who am I, why you guys even logged on to listen to me, who's Mike Jones, why should you even care what I'm saying? Okay, well, let's start with the whole traditional stuff, the education stuff. I'm not a stupid guy. I'm kind of smart, but I got some initials after my name, which helps. I have a biological science degree, that's biology, from SUNY Albany. Like I said, I'm an upstate New Yorker. And then I went into electrical engineering at Oregon Institute of Technology because I moved to Portland, Oregon. That's where my home base is now. And I specialized in something called signal processing, which was really cool. Currently, I believe you should never stop learning. So currently, I'm getting my private equity certifications and financial modeling certifications. And there's 5 other courses I need to complete to get this master's certificate in finance and investing. So you see there in parentheses, it says per processum operis. That's Latin for in process. So just to impress you. Credibility. For the past 2.5 years, I've been vice president of the Portland chapter of the American Association of Individual Investors. Now, remember, I showed you the slide on the stock market. I dabble in the stock market, and so I always believe you should understand what you're investing in. So the best way for me to do that was to join this association, which focuses totally on equities and bonds, the bond market. Currently, I have 2 successful note funds. One is closed. The first one called Forced to Fund LLC. Forced fund, that forced is Norwegian for first. And we just closed that out in November, and we gave our investors 9% annualized return, not simple return, a 9% annualized return over 2.5 years. Currently, I'm running a fund called First Position Capital, and this will end up being the company we stick with from here on out. After this fund, we'll start Fund 2, Fund 3, etc. And we're trying to do the same thing, offer 9% on reperforming and distressed mortgages. Finally, I got really lucky here, and I thought I'd put it up. For the past year, I've had a Wall Street Journal journalist, the WSJ, contact me, and about once a quarter, we talk about the housing market, and I'm actually a market opinion contributor for her. So there's that's some other credibility. But beyond all that stuff, beyond the initials and where I've been, what I've done, this is what's really important about who I am. The mission of our company, and I believe a lot of mortgage investors have this mission, is helping distressed homeowners stay in their home while creating a secure, stable return for our investors. Plain and simple. When people invest with us, or I get to know other investors, the big goal here is how do we obtain financial freedom for ourselves and at the same time give back to the human race, okay? And then pass it on to others. Because there's really no reason to do this. In my opinion, there's really no reason to do anything in life unless you're trying to help make the next generation better, okay? And what I promise, not just to our investors, but to everybody here, like I said, is total transparency with my information. Anytime an investors come to me, I've always just cracked the books. We've looked at the bank accounts. I believe that's the best way to do business. Okay. Finally, some immutable laws. Immutable meaning these are laws that do not change for us. I will not ever work with a person that will not look me squarely in the eye. I've learned my lesson over time. I know it's kind of old school, but that's how we operate. And we operate that if we're accountable to our word, saying what we're going to do, we expect the same from the people we work with. Likewise, like our mission and our goal, we don't enter business transactions that are heavily weighted to benefit either side. That just builds animosity and ruins the relationship. We'd never stop growing. That's the education we're taking on with the company where we grew this fund from the first one. We 5x'd it to the next one. And we understand there's no one to blame for our failure but ourselves. And so our commitment is what's going to dictate our level of success in this business. So that's who I am. That's who First Position Capital is. I thought you guys should know. So I want to tell you guys a story about a good friend. I put this guy's, like I told you, I had a private tutoring company. And this guy we're about to see is an apartment investor in Portland. And he does Section 8, he does people on probation. He takes the worst of the worst and gives them a place to live, okay? I put 2 of his sons through high school because they were failing calculus. And so that's how I got to know this family.
In life, it's very important to have a place to sleep and to be warm. And lots of people struggle in life. When you give them a key for the apartment, it's a good feeling for them and for you. My name is Mo Farhood. I own Stark First Management. I born in Lebanon, Beirut. I lost half of my family during the war. And I immigrated here in 1985 to Portland, Oregon. When I was a kid, I went to orphanage school and I realized how much housing is important. Later on, I started seeing opportunity in apartment business and I started buying apartment. You see, when you grow up in a war zone, you appreciate life differently. This neighborhood, it was at one point depressed. So we tried to improve the neighborhood from sidewalk to lighting to traffic light to make sure the safety of the community. By Freddie Mac helping me to getting the finance, it helped us to provide low-income housing. Lots of people, they have an issue, either in a credit, like from bankruptcy. In our company, we help people with eviction, conviction, probation, because everybody deserves second chance in life. Other lenders, they have more restriction because our company provide for people with low income. Freddie Mac, they never have an issue for us. And when they see people doing a job like our company, they ask us, they need more money. I was gonna stop when I'm gonna own 1,000 units. I see myself in 5 years, I'm gonna be in 2,000 units. I used to bring my kids to clean the lot and give them $5. And they grow up and went to colleges. And my daughter right now, she is the vice president of the company. And my son does the investment. And we consider everybody work for us family. We care for each other. I love people. It's very important whatever you do in life, you love and you enjoy.
Okay, so that's Mo. And I wanted to show you that, guys, because you know, I've already picked on the stock market and I've picked on VC, I picked on house flipping. And I guess now we're getting to into the apartment syndication territory. So Mo was growing from 1,000 to 2,000 units. And I'll hurry this part up, but now because of COVID, he's fighting eviction.
A lawsuit has been filed against Governor Kate Brown, the state of Oregon, Multnomah County, and the city of Portland about the eviction moratorium. Mo Farhood is a property owner in the eastern part of Multnomah County. He says his company has always worked with renters to help them when they were struggling. The lawsuit calls the eviction moratorium unconstitutional by eliminating owners' rights to evict people for lack of payment.
In my opinion, we need a federal and a state and a property owner and a tenant to be partner, because in the end, nobody want to see more people living in the street. When you have the moratorium, like you asking the tenant not to pay rent, and you asking me to keep paying my bills and my mortgage, and this is what keep extending it. It's not helping.
Farhood said he would like to see property or income taxes waived for a few years to help property owners with all the loss of income. We have reached out to the governor's office about this lawsuit,
Guys,
but
so
we have not
that's
heard back.
The great guy Mo that you guys just saw, who's growing his business. Now COVID hits and he can't evict people. But I want to point something out that he said. His tenants aren't paying, but he's still expected to pay his mortgage and his bills. Okay. Remember that. His tenants aren't paying. So he has to cover that. Really quick in the chat, has anybody been affected by COVID? I'm sure you have, but has anybody had any investments affected by COVID? Feel free to chat that down. I'm really curious about that. It could be you benefited from it or you suffered from it. I'd really like to know. I'm gonna go past this, but this clip is about how recently Joe Biden just extended the eviction moratorium till March 31st, which means that landlords, apartment owners, syndicators, they're still on the hook to pay the mortgage and the bills. Okay. So that's what I'm pointing out. Which means, which takes me to this point. Investing, a lot of times, let's get real, it's more pain than gain. And what I'm trying to say here is if you look at this chart, it's a really fancy chart, we feel pain so much more than pleasure, which really means pain is the ultimate driver of our decisions, especially in investing. So the more we can reduce pain, or all those things that, let's face it, they suck, where the government comes in, tells the tenants it's all good, you'll catch it up. We know that's not going to happen. So pain is really the driver for investment decisions. And to be specific, reducing pain. When you make an investment and you're an investor, you are getting paid to take on risk. So here, when there's no risk, it's like buying a treasury note. That little symbol, that Greek symbol there is called beta. That's your risk-free return. The more risk you take on, occupancy risks say, and none of these are in order. These are just some of the risks expected. We're picking on apartments, rentals right now. So you're planning on X percent of occupancy, maybe 80%, 90% occupancy. And then you're usually going to add value to that property. And so there's value add risk, meaning maybe the improvements that you make aren't going to cause the rise in equity that you believe, or the rise in fair market that you believe. You have market risk. Every 9 years, there's a recession where the market dips. So if that's not timed right, you're going to lose a little bit, but you plan on that risk. It's usually in the pro forma. And then you have something called refinance risk, where it's possible that maybe because of the value add risk, you're not going to get as much value as you think you are when you try to refinance that property. Maybe the bank's not going to see it the way you see it. Okay. You plan for all that, and based on all those risks you're willing to take on, you expect a return. Okay. But then you have what I call our surprise risks. Oh, leverage, that's another risk. Over leveraged, or just the leverage you're at. If you understand it, you're taking that risk on, you're cool with it. So no surprises. You take on all that risk, you have no surprises. You should get the return you expect. But this is life, and there are surprises. Like maybe the syndicator is not SEC compliant, and they get busted. And now there's a big lawsuit going on. Happens a lot more than you would think. Maybe they're over leveraged. Maybe there's the first, maybe the 75% loan, and then maybe they took bridge loans, and now they're over leveraged, and they can't pay the bills, and it comes out of your cash flow and the principal return. We already talked about recession, but more than recession, maybe government intervention, like we just saw. Which, there you go, government intervention. So all these surprises eat into your risk. Okay, they're not planned for. So surprise after surprise, if there's too many surprises, your return is much lower than you thought, and you may even lose your capital. I call this concept risk sandwiches. And so with an apartment syndication, or like a apartment house you're going to refinance and sell again, there's two components of a risk sandwich. There's getting your interest or your cash flow. That all comes from the tenants. And then what I want you to pay attention to is the money that's coming from the tenants. How many layers are there between the investor all the way to the right there in a wheelchair and you and the tenants? You have the bank taking it for the loan. You have the repairs and the construction. You have utilities, and then management gets their cut. And then what's left, the investor gets. Okay. But always first in that line is the bank. Now you have another risk sandwich of getting your capital back. And that has a lot to do with the market risk, the appreciation of the property, and the value add. Who makes that decision when you go to refinance? The bank. Again, there's the bank in the first position. And then did the contractors do enough to add the value that you planned? Of course, and then you have to sell that property at the value you planned on in the pro forma. But that doesn't always mean the market is going to buy the property at the price you want it. Okay. So you have more risk. You have a risk sandwich, and then the management again, and then the investor, where will you get your capital back? That's the idea. Or hopefully you'll get your capital back, but will you get your interest? Okay. I just want you to think about the layers in between all that stuff. Like here, the tenants clearly control this situation. Clearly the tenants control it. Here, the market controls it. And the reason I put the investor in a wheelchair isn't because is a lot of times as an investor, you're helpless. You go into a deal, you trust it, and it doesn't deliver what you return. You're helpless. Okay. You're handicapped. So the truth's going to set you guys free, but first it's going to piss a lot of people off. Excuse my France. Okay. My French. And what I'm saying here is that really the truth is with a lot of these deals is because the bank's always in line first. Okay. The bank's always the first to get paid. And most investment schemes, even VC, if you're doing convertible debt and you're the lender, you're getting paid first. So let's think about this. A diversified investment portfolio has a bunch of different assets. There's the highest return for the least risk. And ideally they're uncorrelated, meaning when the market moves for one asset, it doesn't affect it as much. So if like the market tanks, one asset does okay, one asset doesn't, and they balance each other out. Now the idea with, and I'm going to pick on apartment syndication. The idea with that is, well, it's not a single house, right? We're actually syndicating, say, like in Louisville, Kentucky, and we have 500 units. That is what I call pseudo diversification, where the math looks really well on the pro forma because, yeah, the occupancy risk, if it goes lower than X, it'll cover the debt. But the problem with that is, and we're seeing this because of COVID, is one market condition can affect that whole 500 unit apartment complex. So it's pseudo diversified. You could have 1,000 units. You could have 2,000 units. If it's in the same area, the same geographical area, it's going to be affected. Okay. And so the difference between that and buying mortgages, for example, is I can buy mortgages all across the United States. And yes, you have the mortgage asset class, which will be affected, but you have more diversity. You have what's called geographic diversity. So it's all about how much diversity can you put into your investments, okay? So I want you to ask yourself, based on what I was saying here, would you rather receive the interest from the investment or pay it? When you're an investor in an apartment syndication, you're paying the interest. You're not receiving the interest. Ultimately, and when I say paying it, it's coming out of your cut, okay? If you're a house flipper, you're paying interest. If you're in the stock market and you're betting on margin, you're paying interest, okay? So the other thing I want you to think about, those risk sandwiches I talked about. Are you first, like the bank, or are you last in line to receive your investment return? In every case we just saw, okay, you're last in line. If you're a flipper, you're last in line. If you're in the stock market, you're last in line. If you're in VC, you're last in line. There's a reason banks are so tall, and there's so many of them, because they get paid first and they hedge their risk, okay? So what's the point? What am I trying to get across to you guys? The bank gets paid first, always, okay? Always. And not only that, when you're investing in a mortgage, the bank knows that they're loaning money against a real asset, a property. If a commercial lender loans against an apartment building and they get, they loan at 75% of the value, and investors and syndicators kick in 25% equity, the bank owns 75% of that. That's the truth. So when people say, I own a home, only if it's paid off, you own the home. You're responsible for everything that happens in the home, but you don't own the home. Really, until you pay that note off, the bank owns the home. So why not just be the bank? And this is what I preach is, why not be the bank? Just do that. Invest that way. So here's my solution for you guys and gals. Invest in first position mortgages and trust deeds. What's that mean? It means invest in a note or lend your money at the first position, meaning if they don't pay, you have collateral. So you're lending against a real property. And so if they don't pay, your risk is hedged because you can take that property back via foreclosure or another way. Okay. So that's the solution here to get to the point.
Michael, I had a few questions come in.
Sure, man.
But so the first one, somebody did also ask previously the difference between trust deeds and
mortgages.
notes or whatever. Mortgages, sorry.
Yeah, they're all the same thing. It depends on what state you're in. Some states like to use trust deeds, and some states like to use mortgages. And a trust deed and a mortgage, they always have a note attached to it. The mortgage and the trust deed is what gives the bank or the lender the right to the property, and the promissory note is the contract that explains how that will be paid off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
The other one was, where do you buy mortgage notes for 60 cents on the dollar? And would you be able to go back to that same market and sell your modified mortgage from, say, the first example, say for 90,000 to get out of the deal and no longer worry about whether the borrower will perform and lock in a 50% gain?
You can do that. The one caveat to that, and that is the exact strategy, where you'd buy that mortgage, just to cover that really quick, would be, I buy them from hedge funds and private equity funds. I don't have the capital yet to buy them from banks. They typically sell them in big pools, but that strategy is exactly what you would do. And that's what we're banking on doing. The only thing missing in that is you have to have a seasoning period where once the loan's modified, you should season it, meaning you want to prove that that loan modification is going to stick and the borrower pays for at least a year. Then the value of the paper goes up and you can't sell it for 90 cents on the dollar. The longer it's seasoned, the higher you can sell it for as far as cents on the dollar goes.
Great. I'll let you keep continuing there.
Okay. Thanks, man. And so, like I'm saying, guys, this is how it typically goes. You have a home, the bank holds your mortgage, and you pay the bank until that mortgage is paid off, and then you own the home. All we're doing here is we're replacing the bank with us, where we become the primary lender. Okay, so we hold the mortgage, and that's on. Of course, we talked about diversification. So obviously, over time, what you want to do is hold a portfolio of notes across geographical regions you invest in to hedge the risk of different economics in different regions. Okay, that's the basics of note investing right there. Show you guys my first note purchase, which I consider, I was on the fence when I started doing this business. I was like, am I gonna go into rentals, or what am I gonna do? But I didn't go into rentals because I figured I'm not so good with people when it comes to they having my money. Okay, so here's my first note purchase. I purchased it using a HELOC on my house, and I paid $25,000 for the note. And the HELOC is at 4%. It's a 7-year HELOC, and there were 7 years left on the note. And so this is what you call, this is leveraged because I'm using debt, and I'm making 11.4% cash on cash on my money for 7 years, which, and you know, the cash flow on this note is $237 a month. And now I know, you know, if I get on Bigger Pockets and I search the forums and I say, you know, what's a good amount of cash flow per door for an apartment complex or a apartment complex or a house? Typically the number comes out to be $100 to $200. It may have gone up, but that's what I've seen in the past year. And so essentially I'm not risking anything here. If the borrower stops paying, I essentially work with them. I do own on the HELOC. I do have to pay the HELOC in that case though. So this has a little downside to it if the borrower stops paying. Well, so far, I bought this on the bottom. It says November 14th, 2017, and they've paid every month since. So this has been better than a rental for me. So once I made this purchase, I was convinced I'm doing notes. Okay, that's how I got into it. This is a small example of my portfolio with forced to fund. This is only these are 4 notes I purchased. First position, like we talked about, first to get paid. And I got a 9% APR on these guys. And that's unleveraged. So if they stop paying, I don't owe the bank anything. I just have to manage the notes with what's called a servicer. And typically they charge $30 to $90 per asset per month, depending on the status of the note. Okay, so I'm going to get moving on here. Major benefits note investing. Your capital is backed by a real asset. If they stop paying, you take back your property. You get monthly principal and interest payments, and you control that your yield or your rate based on how you buy, essentially based on your discount and based on the value of the homes you buy attached to that mortgage. You can choose your level of risk. You can buy mortgages that have been paying month after month for years. You're going to pay more for them. They're called performing. Or you can take on mortgages that are defaulted and pay maybe 50 cents on the dollar. Okay. And you get to choose your level of risk here. But the point is your capital is always backed by a real asset. When you're doing what I do, it's truly a passive investment. I don't really work very hard doing this business other than finding deals and investors. And so all the work is done through servicers, loan servicers, and lawyers. And I just tell them what to do. You take advantage of recessions because when economies tank, usually lenders have to get rid of those properties at a discount. And when I say properties, I mean the mortgages. You're buying the contract that controls the property like we were talking about. And depending on the status, you're paying 50 to 90 cents on the dollar. You don't just have to foreclose on people. You can modify the loan like I showed you, or you can take back the property and rent it out. You can do very traditional exits. And as far as when times like this with the eviction moratoriums and even foreclosure moratoriums, you don't need huge reserves. For example, like a syndicator would need a reserve that's much larger to pay the bills, to pay the bank. Okay, they get paid first, so the property doesn't get taken back. So notes are non-leveraged, and you're paying a much smaller fee to maintain them. But I want to just touch on the benefit of the benefits of passive cash flow with notes. When I was doing this business, doing this type of investing gave me the ability to fly back to New York and spend time with my dad before he passed away due to complications from Parkinson's this past couple weeks. So I couldn't have done that if I was flipping a bunch of houses and I had to manage a property. Our passive income has allowed my wife to retire from pharmacy. She's the cute one on the right there in the white lab coat. And currently, you might have saw in my bio, we're traveling across the country full time, thanks to mortgage investing, with that passive income covering all our expenses. And here's the bonus. We just bought 62 acres of land in upstate New York, and we're building an off-grid home, and the passive income is allowing us to do that. So it's not just the nerdy stuff. It's what does that capital do for you? And in the future, we're going to use this as we grow our portfolio. We're going to take an extended bike tour for a couple months. This shot is from a bike tour we did a couple years ago. So, and I just want you guys to think about this. When you invest in something, hopefully you're doing it for a good reason. Like you have an intention. It's not just more money. Maybe it should give you more time, or should give you the ability to do more things that matter to you, because that's, as far as all human beings, the only great equalizer is that we each have 24 hours a day. Okay. So I just want to offer you guys something really quick before we start wrapping up here. I know I couldn't teach you guys notes in an hour. That's really hard to do, but I would love to help anybody that wants help out there. I'd like to give you a free hour consultation. And if you have a goal you think, an investing objective you think notes could help you with, I'd love to help you build a roadmap to get there. Okay. So I'm offering a free 1 hour consultation session. Here's another kicker. I work with a vendor that does accredited investor verification. So if you are accredited, or you think you're on the cusp there, meaning see the second line there, you have a salary of X and a net worth of Y, I'm offering a free accredited investor verification letter through my vendor. It costs about $100 a pop, but what it's going to give you guys is the ability to invest in more deals that are not typically available to non-accredited investors. So it gives you guys more options, and it's every year you should probably get a new letter so you can jump on deals. Okay. So I just want you guys to remember, when you invest in a mortgage or trust deed, the real benefit is there's little risk of losing your capital, because if you buy right, your capital's covered by the actual real estate. Okay. So it's just not gone forever like it is in the equities market. So the offers, the hour consultation and the free accredited investor verification, I'm offering until February 19th. And do me a favor, guys, right now is just write down that number, 503-432-6070, and send your email to me, and I'll send you a calendar link and we can schedule. Okay. I just want to share with you guys the same thing that has allowed me to travel the country and bop around. And so again, here's my number, text your email. I believe, Shell, are you sending out the meeting link? So there's a meeting link in the chat. I should say something like calendar x.ai first position. You can also, instead of texting, you see it? Okay. You can just hit that and text and set up a meeting. So I'd like to thank you guys. And definitely, again, thank you so much, Camouflage.
No, I appreciate that. Great information, Michael. And Shelby did put the link out there, and she answered most of the questions I think that were coming through. So if people do have any other questions, the only one I saw that we didn't address, and I think it was directed more towards me, was about an HSA. And yes, you have to have a high deductible plan to be able to participate in HSA, and you can use HSAs through CAMA plan as well to make any of the investments. You're not limited to anything with HSA. So just wanted to put that out there. And thanks for your time and information here. I know we ran a little over. I want to thank everybody for joining today. And if there's anything I can do for you or Michael, please reach out to us.
Yeah, definitely.
All righty. Thank you, Michael.
So is that my friend?
Yes, I think we're good. Rebecca can stop the recording, or she may have already. And thanks for your time, Michael. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. All right,
Alrighty,
Jim. Thanks, man.
absolutely. You got it. Yep. Bye-bye.